too loud, and we pray that you will enter in and interact as we go through the sermon this morning and our time in the Word of God. Right now, though, I want to highlight a few items. You've seen on the board, and you've heard even Elder Eric Edwards talk about it as he was taking us through communion. And that is that our mission, our focus this year is that we are on mission and that we are committed to grow in our own walk with the Lord, but also to go. And that means to share that walk with others who are around us. One of the great ways to do just that will take place next Sunday. Next Sunday, right after our morning service, we will transition to a park that's close to the area, North Cary Park, and we will be having our church picnic. It's the end of the summertime for us, start of the new ministry year, as my wife noted, and so it'll be an opportunity for us to gather and just to enjoy one another after service. As well, though, it's a great opportunity to invite someone who may not be familiar with Grace, someone who's maybe not even open to come to church, to come and then have a great time of fun and fellowship right afterwards. You can even tell them the whole picnic's about them. Okay? You can just let them know. We got a picnic just for you. It wouldn't be the same without you. We hope you'll join us. And so please, let's take a time to not only come out and interact with others who are around us, and it's always important to get to know those you worship with, but also let's take the time to invite someone else. They might get to know the Lord of our worship. Okay? Amen. We're still working on it. All right. The second thing I'd like to note is that we have launched this coming week, or will launch, our life groups. And life groups are very significant, very pivotal to our plan and strategy for growth as a church. That means you being able to grow to get to know others who are around you. And so life groups were considered, they were already conceptualized even before Grace landed, started. And the thought was we needed an opportunity. We needed an avenue whereby we could connect those who are a part of our church with those who are new and those who are here, but getting to know them better. And so what happens is that in a life group, it gives you the opportunity to spend time in an intimate setting, in homes that are across the triangle. Again, getting to know others who are also a part of Grace. And so we have a little promo for that. There is a table out in the foyer for the picnic. There's also a table out there for the life group, and we hope that you will take a moment, stop, sign up. But let me just give you a promo based upon the leaders of this ministry as they presented this past week.
Hey Roger, what are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing life all by myself. I'm doing life alone. You know, Nita, I'm from New England, the land of the frozen chosen.
Okay. Okay, so how's that working for you?
I'm good. I'm tough. I'm doing life alone. Yeah, I'm doing life alone. I got this.
So, as you can see, my husband was trying to control the football by himself and just do life together. But that's not what life groups are about. He was trying to do life by himself. With life groups, we do life together. You were never meant to do life alone. By the way, my name is Nita Thomas. This is my husband, Roger Thomas, and we are life group coordinators. And we're here to tell you a little bit about life groups.
Yeah, life groups at Grace really is a place where you can grow, you can learn, simply do life together. It's not just about solo Christianity, where I was attempting to play football on myself. It's a place where we come together, we learn to grip together, we grow together. It's a place where you can ask questions, get answers, and of course, I heard there's also food.
Some of the life groups do prepare some pretty good meals. It is truly a time to fellowship together, meet people from Grace that you see on Sundays. But this is where you come and you actually meet them and you connect with them. This is all about family. And then we do also study the Bible. It's not all fun and games, but we do learn about the Word.
absolutely. And, but not just Bible study and food and whatnot, but some groups do other things. Sometimes they go to maybe see a movie together, and maybe bowling together, to the beach together. We've seen life groups that have done things like these. And also there's an aspect of evangelism to this as well.
So, Roger, how's that working for you?
Lots better. You're doing life together.
Hey, we want to highlight that, Francis, because it emphasizes, again, you can do life solo, you can do life with others who are around you and are important for your growth in the Lord. And so, again, I want to strongly encourage you, if you have been a part of a life group in previous years, that you'll stop and sign up again. But if you want to just come on out, attempt a life group, there are various ones that you will be introduced to. And then try it. Try it for the first time and see if you like it. I am sure you're going to be blessed by it. Okay?
Amen. Amen.
All right, Grace. One of the areas I pray for us is that we would engage in this time. And I am looking forward to that because it is a vital part of you staying focused and speaking back. Okay? It's okay. It is okay. All right, this week we're going to end up a second part of our series that we have been that we focused on starting last week on Labor Day, and that is that your work matters. Your work is significant. Your work has a place that is so important that God is interested in it, and that we are all called to enter in and to enjoy fully. Last week we focused upon the aspect of work coming from Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, the very first book in the Bible. We talked about work's significance from God's perspective, and we noted that God was so wrapped up in it, so focused upon work being a part of our world, that he started off by modeling it. It says that God worked 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested, he stopped, he took Sabbath. That idea is that work is not just you going at it hard, but also there is a calculated plan that work is not to be the center of your world. We are not to worship work. And so at some point we have to stop. 6 days in, 1 day out. And we noted that God modeled it, and we also noted that he assigned it. Where he put Adam into the garden and gave him a task, gave him an assignment, gave him a responsibility. Because work is why we were created. Some of us would think that work is something that's of the devil, of Satan, that it is wrong, it is hard, and therefore God had no part to do in this. But that's not the case. He assigned it from the very beginning, and we were all given responsibilities, and that is a part of who we are. That's a part of our self-awareness, self-dignity, self-significance, and we are to live that out. And then the last part of that is that God blessed it. And he talked about how even in the midst of our working, that he is involved in that. He cares about that. He wants to see us grow and benefit from it. And so as we come to it this week, some of us heard the message last week, and I've heard from some of you, and the message was that as I applied to Pastor Norm and I went into the week, this is one of my hardest weeks ever. Ever. Now, I don't know if you were one of those who told me that. It was one individual in particular who I heard about on Wednesday. And after service, he said, Pastor, I don't want to send the wrong message, but I want you to know that the week was terrible. It was horrible. It was hard. But at the end of the week, God just turned it all around, flipped it all on his head. And it was a great end to the week. But you may have come to the whole week, it was very challenging. You may have tried to put into place the two aspects and assignments that I gave to you. First of all, that you would thank the Lord for your job as you go to work. The second one is that you would praise him for it ahead of time by faith as you enter in. And so I want to encourage you to do that. But I want to look at two other aspects today. I want to start off by talking about a difficult reality. I want to go back and look at what happened. All that we talked about last week was pre-sin, pre-fall. And as we looked at work, we looked at what God's ideal was for it and how it is to operate in our life. But Adam and Eve, humanity messed up. So what is work like now? What is it supposed to be in a challenging situation, in a challenging world, where things don't always work just the way we want it to? If anything, it's difficult, it's hard. And so I want to go back and look at that. What are some of the changes that have occurred? And then I want to look at how do we take the hardness of our task of work and transform them and let it transform us. So I turn your attention this morning to Genesis chapter 3. And in Genesis chapter 3, we see an incredible after account. It is the account of Adam and Eve being in the garden. They have messed up. They have gone counter to what God has wanted. And so God calls into answering three individuals who are part of this overall scenario. He calls before him and he judges. He disciplines. First of all, the serpent, the creation overall, Satan and his ways. Secondly, he challenges the woman and her part and her role to play. And then finally, he challenges the man. And in challenging the man, I want to note this one because each one of these affects all of us. Each one of these three. But the man in particular, because it is noted there that 3 verses are given to him, whereas to the other 2 individuals, only 1 verse is given in judgment. 3 verses, verses 17 through 19, is God laying out the result of what Adam messed up about. And so, as we look at this aspect of what changes in our world and our life, we see that it goes to the heart of what Adam was commissioned with. His commission was he was supposed to live and take dominion and utilize this world and work. And so for men and for women, we are affected by that. The second one is the woman, and she's affected by it, that she will have pain now in childbirth. One of the key aspects of her calling, which is to be used to see a great population multiply and take over this world. And so now in each one of these, there is a change, there is a challenge. But I want to focus on the man and the discipline that's given to him in verses 17 through 19. Let's start off reading in verse 17 where it says, "Then to Adam God said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife." I want to stop there. Because I know right there are some guys who say, "I found my verse." I knew it was in the Bible somewhere. I knew that God had a verse and a passage for my experience. And so this gives me reason not to listen to the voice of my wife, because look what happened to Adam. That's not what it's saying. I just want to note that for you. Because the reality is what goes on beyond that. He says, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and not heeded my commandment. And I want to make clear of that. Because the issue is not that he listened to Eve only. The issue is you can put anyone else's name in there. A friend, a family member, a parent, a child. God is saying anytime you choose to listen to anyone else's voice that goes counter to what I have commanded of you, judgment is coming. There is an impact, an effect that will take over. And we know that. We live in a situation, in circumstances where there's always someone giving us advice. There's always someone telling us how we should do this, how we should handle it, how we should treat our boyfriend who's not listening right, how we should respond to our children that are doing what they want to do. And in some cases, they go diametrically opposed to what God would have for us. And so the challenge that comes here, and I don't want us to miss it, is this. Anytime we disobey God's commands, it distorts life. Anytime we disobey God's command, it distorts life. We have those who are among us who at some point thought, hey, it's okay. That person really loves me. I know they care for me. I know that I'm going to be the center of their world. And if we have sex outside of marriage, it doesn't matter. Why? Because we're going to get married. And I know God says, wait until marriage occurs. But we're going to get married, and they love me so much, so why can't we just do like everyone else is doing? There are those who are doing the parental thing solo right now. Great kids, love your kids, that's not his intent. It's not his intent when some of us have blots upon our records because there was something we did outside of what we knew God did not want us to do, and it now affects us with a tag, felon, someone who's got a record, criminal record. There are some of us who are challenged just by something that we have done maybe no one else ever knew about. And our conscience still reminds us this was counter to what God had in mind. Anytime, even as well-intended as you might be, even with all the best dreams and end goals that you might have, there is an impact and there is an effect of sin. And we see that in our world. We see it so many times in our world where God says, my way, my way. You may be able to outthink in your own mind what I have in store. You may be able to say, well, if I do it this way, it's going to work out better. And I know some people who did it and everything was fine. But he says, no, I want to remind you. Anytime you disobey what I have already laid down, it distorts life. It distorts life. It distorts life. And so in this moment, you have Adam now standing before God. Eve had given him a fruit to bite, a fruit to eat. And everything seemed fine. It looked great. It seemed like it was going to be juicy, it was going to be wonderful, and we were going to have the engagement of being like God, like the serpent planned, and maybe not having to go through all the challenges of living life under God. And he says, no, there's a reason for that. You see, because when you choose your way over my way, then literally what you're saying is, I'm as good as God. And so God's challenge to Adam is, okay, then now this means that you've got to now handle it. And let me explain to you what it means to handle it, to be in charge, to be responsible, to take life on your own, and to work it out according to your own ability, capabilities, and have it all function the way you think it is best. And so he lays out for Adam in the next few verses all of the challenges and results that come in life. Because he has said, I will be like God. I will handle it. I've got this, God. And so we begin to see in 4 ways how this works out. The first one is highlighted for us in verse 17, all the way through verse 19. It's the key verse, the key word that is presented in this section. It's the word that appears 5 times in 3 verses. Right there, our attention is to be focused upon what's going on. And the verse starts off in verse 17 by saying this: because you listen to the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat. If you look a little further down in verse 17, it also says the same. In toil you shall eat of it. Verse 18, and you shall eat the plants of the field. And again in verse 19, you shall eat bread because of the sweat of your brow. The emphasis there is that before, in the garden where God had Adam and Eve, everything was already provided for them. Everything was perfect. They were hungry. There was fruit all over. They didn't have to cultivate to get food. They didn't have to work to make things come together. They didn't have to put in the toil. Everything was there. Now, though, things have changed. And because you are in charge, you're in control, you wanted it this way, that means you will only have what you need to eat when you labor for it. You know, when I was growing up, I longed to kind of hang out with my dad and my mom and do some things when I wanted to. They were doing their work, and I wanted to go do work along with them, and so it was my choice. But I wanted to do it, and probably I didn't help very much because I was pretty young at that point. And after a while, you know, I kind of lose interest and go do something else. But later on, I realized that man, those were good days. Because later on, when I got on my own, I realized I no longer had a choice. It's not that I wanted to work, it's that I had to work. You don't have a choice in the morning when the alarm clock goes off. You better get up. You know, there's a Bible verse for that. 2 Thessalonians 3 in verse 10. It says, he that does not work, does not eat. Try that on your child. When they're going to give you all that attitude. You see, the reality of it is that when you grow up, you step into a responsibility where it's all on you. You don't put that time in, you don't punch that clock, you don't make the appointments, you don't get there on time, you're going to lose the very avenue by which you're able to take care of yourself. Adam didn't have to worry about that. Eve didn't have to worry about that in the garden because everything was provided for them. But you see, when you step out from under the covering of God and you say, I got this, I'll handle this, I don't need to hear from you, I'll do it my way, then the reality is, even into the core of your existence, everything is tied back into you working hard to make it work. Let me give you number 2. Deals with work itself. And the second part is given as you begin now to look at what work is like. In a garden, it's perfect and cultivates itself, and you're just got to give oversight to it. It's very different when you got to labor to bring out of the earth that which you need for life. And so you see in verse 17 again, it says, you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground In toil you shall eat, but both thorns and thistles the ground will bring up. And then in verse 19, by the sweat of your brow. That's talking about hard labor. So whereas before, everything was perfect. They wanted something, they could go pick it, they could just dig it up, they could have it, they could eat it. They didn't have to worry about the cares of life. Now, all the pressure of life is on them. Everything comes based upon them working hard to get it. The third aspect is given in a word is given there in verse 17, and it is the whole aspect of labor or pain. It says there, in toil you shall eat of it. Now that's an interesting word because that same word is used in verse 16, where it says, your pain in childbirth, speaking of the woman, and also in pain you shall bring forth children. Literally, work now becomes something that hurts at times. Put in a hard day's work and you get real tired. It weighs on you physically in some cases, depending on where you work. It can wear on you emotionally. It can wear on you cognitively, mentally. After a long day's of work, you kind of get a little tired. You kind of feel the agony and the burden, especially when you throw in maybe a job that you're not certain you're going to be able to stay in. One of the things I remember growing up is that on Sundays, one of the reasons why we don't have Sunday evening services is because I used to see my mom take an emotional dip on Sundays as she got ready to go back to work on Mondays. You know, you ever been there? We had that. Sunday evenings going well, mom used to cook a great meal, we used to come home from church, we used to have all those things, and then all of a sudden, about 6 o'clock, I just noticed it was a dip. Getting ready. It was like a plane coming in for a landing. Fasten your seatbelts. And I used to see that, and I realized that for most people, there is an emotional dip on a Sunday evening. So we cleared the calendar. So you would have time to spend with other saints and be able to encourage yourself going into the week. Why? Because I got to go back to the grind again. I got to get back on the wheel again. Some of us, when we were unsaved, we used to get smashed on Friday nights. Do it again on Saturday. Club through the weekend. Barely make it into church, make it into work on Monday. And sometimes maybe not even fully know where we are. Why? Because we want to get away from the grind. Well, I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm talking to all those who say, never had an issue. Never drank, never had to deal with life. Can't remember the time you were not a Christ follower. But the reality is, that's what a lot of people around us do, if it's not us. And they do it so often and so well. They're trying to deaden the burden of the ongoing grind of just monotony, of work, and life. Get off it going into Friday. Oh, TGIF, just to get back to, oh my goodness, Monday morning. And so as you look at it, we now become those who are under the burden of having to do something that is challenging and not always enjoyable. But we realize, again, he who does not work does not eat. And so we do it because we have to. Let me give you the final one. The final one is given, and it's laid out for us at the very end, verse 19. It says, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken. For you are dust, and to the dust you shall return. Now some of us may have heard that. The very last statement is made over the body, from dust to dust, ashes to ashes. So here's the challenge. The challenge is in most of our lives, in most of our cases, when we usually work hard, we usually see ourselves moving in a direction. We usually see ourselves getting closer to a destination. We usually see ourselves progressing. When I ride a bike, and I'm on that bike, and I'm putting in the time, and I'm putting in the energy, I know that when I get off that bike, I'm going to be somewhere else. I know all the pumping, all of the sweating, all of the grind, all of the hurt, all of the agony is getting me to my destination. But that's not the case here. You see, what God is saying is, you're going to work hard, you're going to give it all you got, you're going to sweat, you're going to just be agonizing, and you won't be able to outrun the inevitable, the end, death. It's not like riding on a regular bike where you move and get somewhere. It's like riding on a stationary bike. You ever been on a stationary bike? You pumping a stationary bike and you're sweating, Lord, and you're going, and you're moving, and you're kicking, and you're going, and then you get off, and you're right where you were. All that energy, all that time, all it did was help you feel like you're doing a whole lot. You needed it in the moment because you wouldn't have been on that stationary bike otherwise. But you're not outrunning anyone. And you could be out here just doing it, just moving, just looking at yourself in the mirror. Oh! Damn, I'm going to outrun you. Working out, eating right, doing everything right, going into our work early, staying in late. And then in time, it still ends up in the same place. Dust to dust. So now that I've given you the reality, the difficult reality, the difficult place that all of us run to, where we live now because of Adam and Eve's mess up, I want to give you a wonderful reality. You see, because the other side to all this is sometimes we can think where we find ourselves is our reality. Your reality is not based upon your experience. Your reality is not based upon your experience. Your reality is based upon your interpretation of your experience. Let me say that one more time, because at least you should have got one example. Your reality is not based upon your experience. Your reality is based upon your interpretation of your experience.
Amen.
Thank you, brother. No, thank you. You see, the truth of the matter is, for every single one of us, as we look at our lives, our work has been blessed of God, even in the midst of our challenges. And there are two major aspects of our world that we must get in gear if we are to change our sense of reality and our experience. The first one is this. We must see work, and that is connected to worship. Our work is a part of our worship. You see, for many of us, we never make that connection point. And so we come out of here on Sunday morning, and we think, okay, that was our worship. We have it all the way up until we get into the job. That is our worship. We go through our day, and it's just making it happen. I just got to bring home the bacon. I just got to bring it all together. And then after the work, we come out, and then we may worship on the way home. Thank God we're done with that job for another day. But can I tell you, your worship doesn't end at the door of your employment. Your worship should be every single part of your life and aspect as you live it through. Let me give you a few passages that I think are very key in the midst of this. And I want us to know this. If you haven't written anything down at this point, please do. Please do with this statement. Because the reality of it is if you don't get this, then what happens is that how you experience life will be categorized and impacted by the situations and challenges that you face. We noted in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15 last week that when Adam was put into the garden, Adam did the work that God had for him. And as he did that work, what happened is that the same phrase is used for him in the garden that's later used of priests in a temple. So Adam was working and worshiping God as he accomplished the assignment God had given to him. Okay? The other aspect of that I want you to note is Colossians 3, verses 23 to 24. Colossians 3, verses 23 to 24. Paul notes this as he gives this emphasis to Christians. He tells them, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. In other words, when you go to work, you're not working for the man. You're not working for your boss. You're not working for the evaluation. You are working for the Lord. And in the midst of your working, make sure that you walk with the Lord. Make sure that you're interacting with the Lord. Because where you are, it is His desire for you all to engage deeply through your work. Do you know that most of our weeks, 85% of it is spent at work? So what? If we don't take God into our work world, we've left Him out for 85% of our weeks. In other words, prayer should be a part of your work day. Worship should be a part of your work day. Engage deeply in the songs of worship now. Why? Because I pray you'll be singing them as you go to work. It means having an opportunity to give thanks for those things that are happening in your job and at your job. It means making sure that as you're working through your job, you're engaging with God, realizing that He is interested in where you are and what you desire. to do on your job. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, put it this way, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. That means that as I'm at work and somebody's looking at me, there should be a whole different perspective on how I am going at. If it's a job I love, everybody else can tell. If it's a job I don't love, everybody else can tell. But the key is not what you're doing, the key is who you're doing it for.
Amen.
And if your attitude is, God is here with me, and this may not be where I want to be. This may not be where I want to do for life. This may not be even something I want to do right now. But I will honor the Lord. I will work heartily, my heart fully into it. Why? Because even this, as Adam in the garden, it was an offering of praise. So I'm giving my job to God as an offering of praise and all of that. You know, C.S. Lewis, famous English Christian writer, put it this way. He said there are parts of the world that there are beautiful fields, beautiful landscapes that no one has ever seen. And God has put them there. And many people might think, well, why did God put it there if no one sees it? You see, because God is a God of beauty. And God will do things even in areas that may challenge us for us to understand the greatness of who He is. I believe that many of us in the areas that we work, God has something beautiful there. But we've got to enter in to see it. And it's not just when you appreciate it only. It's already there. You've got to enter in. And so as you work daily, are you aware that God is with you? Are you thanking Him for your job? We talked about that last week. Are you praising Him as you go through the day? Are you doing your tasks and your responsibilities as unto the Lord? So when things don't go right, you say, hey, Lord, help me with this. Thank you, Jesus. This worked well. You will find that your worship on Sunday will be radically different if you're worshiping through the week.
Amen.
Why? Because your worship doesn't end on Sunday. It begins on Sunday. You get recharged on Sunday. And your songs of praise now, sing them through the week. You will see a difference. You will see a difference. Let me give you number two. The other side of that is that your work must be witnessed. We have on our boards on both sides a thought, a concept, a motivation that we're trying to push deep into us. And that is that every single one of us is on mission. Every single one of us is called of God. Every single one of us has a purpose in God. And it's not just the pastor, it's not just the leaders here, it's every single one of us. Our lives matter. God looks at it, is pleased by it, and He wants to see you be all that He desires for you to be where He places you. So, I believe that where you are in life and where you work is also part of that placement. It's also part of where God has put you so that He might shine through you. Let me give you a few verses to show that. We noted last week, Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 6, where it talks about the fact that those who were even slaves in that society were called upon to live as unto God and to bless Him by their serving their masters. Why? Because again, it wasn't their experience, it was their interpretation of their experience. They weren't working for their master on earth, they were working for their master who was in heaven. And so that was their perspective. They could do jobs that were quality. And by doing so, bring everyone's attention to their outlook and their attitude in that job. Another passage I want to turn your attention to is the fact that means that when we excel, that we are given a testimony as to the God that's in us, the God that's walking with us. In Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 29, the passage says this. It says, do you see a man who is skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. Okay? Do you see a man who's skilled in his work? That means, hey, any job that you're doing, that means you got to enter in. You're not just passing time. If you're putting cream on a donut, to be the best cream donut layer ever. Why? Because you're saying, hey, the God who made me is interested in what I do. And I'm not doing this to the person who's just going to lick it off and keep going or scrape it off. I'm doing it because God is pleased in seeing how I work. He's seeing how I work. I remember my mom and dad used to say it. I know they didn't believe it. They said, hey, even if you are a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper around. If I ever came home and said, okay, mom, dad, you want, I'm going to be a street sweeper, they would kill me. But I understood what they were saying. They were saying, whatever you do for life, enter into it fully. enter into it fully. It is a shame to God when we just pass time. When we just go to a job, keep looking at the clock, just try to make nobody see us, take as many bathroom breaks as we don't get caught on. Always on the internet where we're supposed to be doing work. Taking calls or texting on the side. That's not a testimony. Please, take your crosses off when you go to church, when you go to work when you do that. Don't use the name of Jesus if you're going to do that. Why? Because people are looking at you and they can see and they hope to see God in you. Again, if you're going to do work, do the best that you can in all that you do. Because it's a sign of excellence. Not for your employers, but for the God who is over you. Let me give you another passage that shows that. If you look at Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1, it says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. In other words, those jobs where you have to use a scale, someone who would rig the scale in their favor, says God is looking, and he's not pleased. He's looking, and he says, if you're gonna work, and if you're gonna do a job, then do a job fairly. Especially if you're gonna do a job under my name. Because if my name is over it, then you've got to do something that is in accordance with my character. That means it's done right, and it's done with a level of morality that is exceptional. And then let me give you this passage. If you'll also know, Matthew 28:19, it says, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And make disciples is really the emphasis there. But if you note in that passage, the Great Commission we call it, you'll also note over in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15, it says this. It says that, but sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts always, being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and with reverence. In other words, our life should be such that when we talk about our hope, when we talk about our trust, when we talk about the motivation for the kind of life that we're living, that when someone else asks us, hey, what's this wristband you're wearing? That looks kind of nice. And you talk about being on mission. What's your mission? What about this going to church on Sunday? How come you don't go out and get smashed after work like the rest of us do? How come I haven't heard you use bad language? How come it seems like you are always quick to do the job, do it well, do it right? What keeps you going? You ever been asked that question? No, don't answer it, because if you haven't been asked that question, that doesn't say something good about you. But what it does mean is that if you're living a life where God is your true boss, then you're going to look different. Then you're going to act different. Then you're going to sound different. Then you're going to get in on time, if not early. Then you're going to leave at the point of departure or later. And it means while you're there, you're going to give it 100%. Because your work matters. Because your work is significant. And it doesn't matter if you are pulling 6 figures or you're pulling less. It doesn't matter if you've got the kind of job where you have studied all of your life and you are now at the point that you have longed to be at. It doesn't matter if you're flipping burgers or you're flipping individuals, telling them, hey, you can do this job, you can't do this job, you're in charge. It means whatever you do it with such a high quality of life that you turn whatever job you do into a place of worship to God. Your temple is where you work. Now, if you can't view your work that way, then it's time to find another job. And if you still can't find a place that you can view that way, it's time to find another outlet. Because the reality of it is your experience will be based on your interpretation of where you are. Now, I want to end up with this point. If you look back in Genesis 3 and verse 15, there's something very interesting that happens there. It is in that passage that God is speaking to the serpent, to Satan, and he tells him, he says, there will be one who will come, and you will bruise his ankle, but that one will bruise your head. Now that's very interesting, because a head wound is a serious wound, and all you're going to be able to do is slow this person down. In the midst of judging Satan, God gives a promise in its very first form here in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15 that will find its full fulfillment in the New Testament. Because Jesus comes from a virgin, born to life, lives a life, and in time gets hung on a cross. But it doesn't end the story. The story is that from that cross, he now reigns victoriously. And slowly over time, we can pray, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Take over. Finally, bring your peace in. And so I'm here to tell you today, you're not always certain what God is doing where he has you right now. But I can tell you there is a promise that as you serve him and live for him, that which might seem like a dead-end position, a dead-end job, he is going to do something incredible. Because the end of the story is not the beginning. And he gives a promise before he gives a judgment. And I believe that in every single one of our cases, even in where we are now and where we find ourselves in life, he's already given you a promise. And you may see it as a judgment. I want to tell you, even in the midst of your challenges, there is hope. And so if you're here this morning, I encourage you, live to his glory. Not working just to move from your one job to the next job. Not going to do your best only when they treat you right. But live to the best of your ability. Amen. Give them all you have. Work in such a way that you're working for the Lord. And honor him through your life. Because you do not know how he's going to use it. And then be on mission. Realize that's part of your growth. It's part of your goal. You know, I want to pray for you. As I mentioned last week, I hear from some who are going through difficult times. You might be in need of a job. You might be in need of a new job. You might be in need of changes on your job. And I want to pray for you. Because I believe God is vitally, intimately interested in where you work and what you do. And whether you work and you